Welcome to the last two talks of our business track before the closing notes. So we'll start in style with the best dressed attendee at this conference, BJ McCahill, VP of Kashiyama, a Japanese fashion brand that he launched in the US, both in retail stores and e-commerce. And the e-commerce website went so well, he also used it to launch on the Chinese market. So welcome, BJ, to talk about scaling new markets with customized commerce.
All right, thank you all for attending. As she mentioned, I'm BJ McCahill. I'm the VP at Kashiyama, where I started on day one at Kashiyama USA, launching the brand that originally started in Japan, here in the US, in both retail and e-commerce as well. And today we're going to talk about how we did that and the history of the brand. So starting first, the Kashiyama brand is actually part of the Onward Group. It's a global portfolio of brands headquartered in Tokyo. They have over 50 different fashion brands, and it started in 1927. And since then, they've acquired brands all over the world through either licensing deals or for full acquisition. So one example, they use the Calvin Klein brand. They license it in the Japanese market and sell it there. They also own the brand J Press here in the US, which they also market in the Japanese fashion stores as well. It's a true fashion house with decades of fashion data that they've acquired, and they have many great relationships with different mills and different textile companies as well. It's vertically integrated, so they've bought production centers, warehouses, and pattern-making brands. So they actually design a lot of the clothes in-house that they sell in the different retail footprints, which is really interesting as well. And in 2017, they used a lot of the data that they've acquired from these decades of off-the-rack brands to launch the Smart Tailor made-to-measure suiting division. To do this, the main key was really setting up the Smart Factory, which allowed for direct-to-consumer orders. And this greatly reduced the production time on suiting to generally 4 to 7 days, which you can imagine is a huge reduction for a custom product like that. And having been to the factory to explore, I've seen a lot of really interesting things that help to do this. A lot of it has to do with new technology and robotics. So when an order is sent over there, the fabric is on a large roll. Robots actually take the large roll, and then lasers cut the exact amount of fabric that is needed for that size that's ordered. Then lasers actually cut it specifically to the measurements that are sent over for this client's purchase. Throughout the center, which you can see a nice image of here, there are baskets that automatically move the product as it's being produced down the assembly line, as they add buttons, buttonholes, linings, all of those parts of the item. You can imagine that saves a lot of time, just something as silly as walking a bin from one station to another. They're doing this automatically, and that saves a lot of time and production costs. There's also a tablet that's attached to each order that gives the details on the sizing specifications and also all of the customizations that are sent over. So this really allows for great quality control, so clients are really receiving exactly what they're ordering, which is great. And due to this, the brand became a runaway success in Japan, and in the first year, they suited up over 200,000 individuals. Mostly due to the trust of the brand because it had been around since 1927 and was a household name. So then in 2018, we began the launch in the US market, and then in 2019, we also expanded into the Chinese market. So some of the data that helped us determine the next markets to move into are just generally the size of them. The first is that the US generates the most revenue in men's apparel with estimates of over 100 billion last year. China is the second largest market with revenues of over 92 billion last year. And the suit market specifically in the US is at 1.77 billion, just second to China actually, which is at 2.68 billion. Kashiyama has now opened 4 locations in the US, 6 in China, and this goes along with the over 60 different stores across Japan. Another key factor that went into the research and launch of the brand was the aspect of personalization. Clients are really looking for a unique and personalized product. So a lot of research has shown, especially after the pandemic, consumers are looking for unique products to help promote their individuality. And with the acceptance of casual apparel, people are looking for ways to really make it stand out, so that custom aspect really goes into that. A consumer review by Deloitte found that 36% of consumers are interested in personalized products or services. The survey also indicated that 48% of consumers will wait longer for a customized product, so they're okay waiting for it to be produced because of that unique aspect of it. Kashiyama took advantage of this by launching over 400 different fabrics each season to start. They have virtually infinite personalization, so you can do different buttons on your suit, you can do monogramming, you can do different lapel styles, all those things to really make the garment truly the way that you want. And also with that comes the personalization of fit. So there are a lot of ways you can change the measurements of a suit, from the shoulder width to the stomach width to the width of the pant. So all of that goes into creating this custom suit for you. So in the US, when we started setting up, we started a series of pop-ups to kind of gather feedback from the US consumer, because we knew it would be different than the Japanese consumer. Initially, when I went over to Japan to study how the stores were run, we utilized a lot of the same practices in the stores initially, but obviously as we gathered feedback from the stylists working here in the US, we were able to kind of tailor how the stores were run and work towards new goals for fit, product, and fabric offerings. So you can imagine the US has different tastes in fabrics, so we were able to acquire US-specific fabrics that are sold just in the US market. A lot of these were brighter colors that you might not see in the typical Tokyo office. We also worked to add different sizes, so a lot of them were the larger sizes that we needed here in the US, so we worked to add those. We also changed some of the grading of the sizes, so that's the ratio of each part of the item, so the chest to stomach ratio. That's different in the US, and so we were able to achieve kind of a better fit by working with those internal pattern makers that I mentioned earlier that work out of our Tokyo office. One of the most obvious things that we realized soon was that we needed to move our ordering system to an e-commerce platform. So initially in the stores, stylists actually handwrote out these orders and then inputted them into manual fields like you can see on this lovely order sheet. But the stylist had to type in each of these individual boxes all of the specifications that went to the factory. So you can see that's not obviously the most efficient way for a stylist to use their time. And so we worked to streamline this, and we launched the new US website with the user experience that was fit for the American consumer. Japan had an established e-commerce site, but the organization of the site, of all the menus and all of that, really didn't suit the American taste, and so we kind of started from scratch here. But we did utilize all of the back-end integrations to our existing Japanese infrastructure. So there's a large customized system that manages all the data for both the fit and style options for all of the custom products. And this also integrates seamlessly with our different production centers for the various products that we have. All of that was really important because the stylists are now able to input orders that go directly to the factory to be downloaded and produced. And this happens overnight on the first night when the product's ordered, so by the next day it's already being downloaded and sewn at the factory. And this also helps create scalability for new markets. And as I mentioned, we went into the Chinese market in the next year. During the setup process, the most important thing was really looking at the data complexity and making sure that the integrity was there. We went through, honestly, mountains of data. When you can imagine, it's such a personalized product. There are hundreds of fabrics inside the data, dozens of customizations, lots of base designs, hundreds of fit patterns, and then lots of ways to change the measurements of a suit from the posture to the circumference to the length. All those things went into this, and you can see this is just a small snippet of the data that we went through for the different products. We also had to look at translation, so all of the headers of all of these files are actually in phonetic Japanese, so it took quite a long time to go through that and just make the translations for what this column was inside. Obviously, the importance of accuracy is key when you're using it in different markets, but also the aspect of customizing it for different country's usage is. So there are different standards for especially suiting in different countries. So like one small example, in Japan, a tuxedo typically has no vents on it. In the US, the standards usually has one center vent in the back. So just being able to offer different examples like that on the front end was really, really important. But a strong back-end system was necessary for this level of product, since it is not SKU-based. And obviously, we looked at shipping data as well that needed to maintain accuracy across all of the markets. So looking at the shift to Magento, some of the impacts were just obviously efficiency and time saved. So stylists were able to focus on selling and styling customers instead of just entering orders. You can imagine the data sent to the factory was a lot more accurate when you're not hand typing in hundreds of cells. So that obviously impacted the client experience in previous orders when things would show up incorrectly. Now items are made correct to the specifications that are submitted. And obviously we increased our product visualization so that clients can interact with the products before ever coming into a store. And that was really key, as obviously previously we had no website at all. And here you can see a few examples of ways that we've customized the site. So up top you can see the Japanese e-commerce site where we've worked with a Japanese celebrity, which may not have resonated in the US or in China. You can see the Chinese site on the side there. We also built a WeChat mini program application as well to allow for flexibility in checkout. And on the bottom you can see we added in weddings for the US market. That's a huge part of the suit industry here in the US, which is not really in Japan. When we first were setting this up and creating the content, we had to show Japan's headquarters actually pictures of American wedding parties of 10 groomsmen on the beach somewhere to explain kind of the importance of this market and why we could sell so many suits this way. And yes, we did throw basically an entire wedding to capture imagery like this to build out the content for our weddings information. Looking at how we use Magento, we really use it as a source of truth for all information. This way we're able to have consistent experiences across all of these complicated markets, but we're still able to personalize it. Analytics is really key, so using the BI tool has really been important for us. It allowed for quick insights into which fabrics, patterns, and selections were performing best per market. It also helped us identify the need for which categories to expand into, since we started with just men's suits, but we've expanded greatly since then. And also helped us determine which of these markets needed which of these products. We also were able to determine where clients were getting stuck in the purchase flow to make improvements to the UX, and also to follow up with these segmented clients in a personalized way. I think one of the most important ways that we use it is a seamless experience between store and online. So a client can go into the store, work with the stylist, get measurements. They can then go home, finish the checkout there, get approval from a spouse on the order, and check out there. They can also start the design process at home, go in, check in with the stylist, make sure that the selections they've made are appropriate, get measured, and then finish checking out at home. So that's been really key. We initially looked at using a separate app-based store experience, but we quickly realized that developing a stylist version of a web-based site was going to be much better in terms of that omni-channel client experience. This also allowed for us to have clients check out and do repeat orders after they've been measured, and so that was something they could never do before. It had to be ordered through that form, which really only a stylist could fill out. So now if a client gets measurements, they're very happy with it, they can check out from their home or from anywhere else. We also utilized the PWA functionality for the Speedy In-Store Stylist app, which has additional features as like the way to enter measurements, which our client doesn't need at home in the same way. We've launched a lot of new items since then to really become a made-to-order lifestyle brand. So one of the things that we worked with was a self-measurement order flow. So now we've taken the data for measurements that the stylist used and kind of simplified it for a way for clients to check out from states and cities where we're not located, both in the US and in China. And we've seen great success with this already. We've also been able to test and fine-tune new products in select markets before rollout. So some examples you can see here. We are testing women's custom pumps in Japan. So women can select the heel height, they want leather, suede, which color or pattern they'd like, and then the toe shape. And this applies to the production, the offerings, and the website functionality. So we're able to test all of that before we import it to another market like the US or China. We've also done this here in the US with the launch of custom jewelry. So you can now get custom earrings and rings here. So you choose the color of the metal, the carat, the stone, the base design, and about 10 million other options that you can make selections from. And while this is going on, we're working on improving website functionality before rolling it out to our partners in China and Japan. We've also expanded into shirting. Men's casual suits were a big need that we developed during the pandemic when people were at home on Zoom. You could still look good, but you're still in a stretched kind of pattern and style of suit. We developed overcoats for our cold weather markets. We developed women's suiting. That was a big demand, and also it's a big trend following the pandemic with people who want to get dressed up a little bit more now. And as I mentioned, the fine jewelry and footwear categories that we have developed as well. And just a few key takeaways. So Kashiyama was really a fashion-forward company, not a tech-forward company, but we've been able to adapt with the changing technologies, especially using the Magento platform. We focused on the consumer desire for personalization to really scale into the new markets of both the US and China. And with creating one source of truth for all of our product data, we've scaled into these markets successfully and plan to do this in additional markets in the future. We've customized it with unique online storefronts that reflect the consumer behavior and tastes across these very different cultures. And we've been able to test these products in one market before rolling them out into others so that we can avoid mistakes in those other markets that may come up with a brand new product line. And this really personalized in-store and at-home experience is quickly helping our brand become a leader in made-to-order lifestyle products. So thank you so much. Please,
Do you have any questions? Because I have a few.
A quick question on entering into the China, where as a market, e-commerce is really like dominantly by the Taobao and all those platform. How do you guys like promote your brand.com website to the population there?
Yeah, I mean, I think in China specifically, working with a stylist has been key there. So a lot of the checkout is done either in store through Magento, or it's done right afterwards on WeChat. And so I think that's really helped that personalized approach. In the stores here and in China, we use a tablet, and I think it creates kind of a unique bonding experience between a client. You're both really building the suit from scratch together. You're spending usually an hour together, and so it allows for that to happen, I think, pretty easily.
Yeah, I have a question about your marketing strategies to get the brand known in the US. What worked for the brand?
I think, honestly, focusing on the personalization has been key. Especially, we have a configurator that we've built on the site, and showing that how a user can design a product from scratch has been key. So it's not just maybe the finished image like you saw there with the models wearing the product. It's really how the client at home can build this from scratch in a 3D tool that we've integrated into the site. So I think that's really been key, is really showing like how a client can do this and why it's so unique, and not just the final product that you're getting, even though that is, I think, amazing as well. Yep, you can submit them at home. It's a simplified version, so there's less customization. So things that you might not be able to identify, we have those in the Stylist app. So a lot of it's to do with like the posture settings on a suit. A lot of clients don't notice maybe that one shoulder is lower than another shoulder, but they can usually effectively measure their chest or their sleeve length to get. But it still allows for a truly custom product at home. So maybe it's similar to ordering an off-the-rack size, but you're able to still add hundreds of fabrics and all those options, and your name, lapel color, like really small details that you can't really get in store.
What do people check out with if they go in store, get the fitting, and then check out after? Are they just checking out for a default suit, and then, or the adaptations made in the Magento store? How does that work?
For sizing? Yeah, so the measurements are tied to a client's email address, so there's no like guest checkout feature because you need to have a sizing profile created. But as long as you're using your email and login, you'll always have that latest measurement applied. And it will not take you to the self-measurement flow because you have other measurements on file, so it will bypass that and take you right into the cart instead of doing those measurements.
So would you recommend if you're locale to a store to go in and so would you recommend then to go into the store for that more customized approach, and then you just leave with that data associated to the customer?
If you have the ability, I think it's great too. There are a lot of things that you maybe won't notice at home that a stylist that's trained in this can. So if you're local to a store, right now we're in New York, Boston, DC, Philadelphia, and doing pop-ups across the country. If you're able to get in and get measurements, even if you're not maybe ready to buy then, you can have those measurements on file as long as you don't change size frequently, then you can use those.
So if we were to register for newsletter subscription on the site, you would announce when your pop-ups would be in Miami, for example?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, we were in Miami in March. Next week we're in LA, so a lot of these pop-ups are able to help clients get measured, but it also helps us gather measurement data that we can use towards future products as well at the same time.
Excellent. Thank you.
For us, it was really the custom nature of the product. I mean, there are like 10 billion combinations, and we needed something really customized to account for that. I think that was the main part. Also, we're not SKU based, so we don't have like really easy SKUs to identify the products. It's all the combination of these attributes that are combined together to create that item that is sent to the factory. And I think those were the main reasons that we chose it.
Imagine doing that with Shopify.
Yeah. Yes, she said it, not me.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, BJ.
Thank you, guys.